want to make sure that we have enough time for questions at the end. Good morning, everybody. I'm LaShawn Gordon. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives here at United Partners in Human Services. I also have my colleague, Justin Fitzpatrick, who is the Coordinator of Membership and Communications. So welcome, welcome, welcome. With us today, we have Ms. Crystal Avilus, who I've had the privilege of knowing many, many years. She's a licensed clinical social worker and currently the program director at Pace Center for Girls, where she's worked for quite some time. She's also a mom, a therapist, and the co-owner of Discount Transportation. She serves on several local nonprofit boards and is also a recipient of many local Trailblazer Awards for her hard work and service to young women and girls. I will turn it over to Crystal right now, who's going to tell you a little bit more about herself, and we will jump into the presentation. Crystal, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here, and I'm glad that you all made the time to come here. I know for a lot of people, it is their Monday morning, which is not always the greatest. So it shows your commitment to show up and learn about trauma and how it affects the workplace and the people that we serve and our community. So thank you for being here first and foremost. So let's get into it. A little bit about me. LaShawn did a great job. I won't go into all this stuff, but I do own Crystal Clear Counseling. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Most important thing about me and the thing I'm the most proud of is I'm a mom of 6. I love them and they have shaped me to be the person I am today. I'm also a native of Kingston, Jamaica. So that's just a little bit about me. You'll hear me say throughout this presentation that help isn't help unless it's helpful. Those of you who may have attended Thomas University know that that slogan originated from there, but it is truly how I live my life. If it's not helpful, just don't do it. And a lot of times we think we're helping, but it's just for our own person. We're helping for us. We're handing the client the tissue for us to stop the tears, but really it's the uncomfortableness of crying that we are trying to stop. So that is just, you'll hear me say it throughout today. If you have any more questions about help isn't help unless it's helpful, let me know. A little bit more about me. This is just some accomplishments I had. I was Social Worker of the Year last year. I'm a proud member of Zonta and my Unsung Shero Award from the Oasis Center. Let's get into some more stuff. Overall, I'm just a goofball. People on here that knows me know I'm just goofy. I'm always good for a joke. And I just feel like that's how the work that we do is so impactful. And I think that sometimes you just gotta laugh. You can't take yourself so seriously. I was laughing a few minutes before I got on here. So just knowing that, you know, don't overthink it and don't take yourself too serious because the clients don't know, people don't know. And just enjoy life in the moment. So that's my little goofball. All right, let's go. So this is a little video. It's trigger warning a little bit, but it kind of goes to what we're talking about today and how services connect with each other and how we can re-traumatize if we're not careful. So this is a little video. It's about 8 minutes long and we'll watch it together and then kind of talk about the points in it.
I'd like to start with a story that was developed by the NCTSN. This story will be used to give you some perspective on the lived experience of many children and families with whom we all work. Henry is 5 years old. He's heard and seen his parents fighting for his entire life. He feels scared and confused when they fight, but he loves his parents dearly. One night, he woke up to the sound of screaming coming from the kitchen. He became frightened and wondered if they were fighting because he'd gotten in trouble at school earlier that day. He crept downstairs to find his mommy bleeding on the kitchen floor. Moments later, 3 big police officers burst through the front door with their guns raised. Henry heard a lot of yelling, and then one of the police officers was leading his dad out of the front door in handcuffs. Another officer took Henry to the police car and began to drive away. Henry did not get to say goodbye to his mom, did not know if she was okay, and had no idea what was happening or where he was being taken. After spending a few long hours at the police station, a lady came to take him to a house where he was met by a man and a woman he had never met before. The lady dropped him off, and the man and the woman put him into a bed that felt big and unfamiliar. He cried himself to sleep. The next day, the woman took him to a new school for kindergarten. He had to wear someone else's clothes that were a little too small. He didn't know anyone at the school, and he felt scared and shy. At school, he had a hard time concentrating on the teacher and following the class rules. Sometimes he got in trouble for this, became really scared that his teacher would become angry at him and yell, just like his daddy used to. A few days later, a new lady came to the house and asked him a lot of questions. Henry asked about his parents and was told his mommy was in the hospital and his daddy was in jail. Henry did not get to talk to his mom or dad or see them for what felt like a very long time. He felt angry and confused. He had a hard time sleeping, and when he did sleep, he had bad dreams and he wet his bed at night. The man and the woman would yell at him for this, which reminded him of when his daddy would yell at his mommy. He felt scared when they yelled and would hide under the table. Soon the lady came back and took him to a new house. He didn't know if it was because he had done something bad. Henry wondered how many different houses he'd have to go to and if he'd ever get to see his parents again. If we continue to follow Henry, we witness the termination of his parents' parental rights. Yet given his age of 8 now, his adoption process is slow. At the age of 12, in his 8th foster care placement, he witnesses his foster father yelling at his foster mother. Reminded of his childhood experience with family violence, he inserts himself between the two of them, determined now to stop this kind of verbal violence, which he fears will lead to physical violence. He takes a swing at his foster father. His foster mother calls the police. Henry is charged with simple assault and is now introduced into the juvenile justice system. As we listen to this story, we hear the violence in Henry's family that led to their initial engagement in our system of care via the police. Yet if we really explore this story, we notice that 5 sentences of the story is the familial violence Henry experiences. This is significant and certainly has an impact on Henry's lived experiences of families and safety. Yet the next 3 to 4 paragraphs of this story involves trauma from the systems of care designed to support Henry and his family in recovery. Henry and his family must navigate these systems successfully in order to be reunited and to heal. Yet if our systems of care are not trauma-informed, we actually re-traumatize Henry and his family. We actually prevent recovery instead of fostering it. How common is Henry's story? The fact is that trauma is pervasive. It can affect anyone, regardless of race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status. When trauma is chronic and experienced early in life, it can have toxic effects, even changing a child's brain development. The effects of trauma are long-lasting, resulting in children and families adopting maladaptive behaviors to cope with stressors, having difficulty building trusting relationships, negative outcomes in school functioning, barriers to the development of physical and emotional health, an increased likelihood that families will transmit the trauma across generations. Many children and adults who have experienced multiple types of trauma develop complex trauma disorders. Persons with complex trauma disorders have difficulties with self-regulation, their ability to calm and relax their body, positive self-identity. Often they think that the bad things that happen to them is who they are, and co-regulation. This is the ability to engage in healthy relationships. These are foundational skills in coping and in building resilience. When lacking in these areas, children often build coping skills that are based in fighting with others, running away, or staying very still until something stressful is gone. These are often known as fight, flight, freeze behaviors. This leads to children who've experienced trauma being misunderstood. They are often labeled as bad children, rather than looking at what has happened to them that makes them behave a certain way. A phrase I often like to use is when approaching children who have even possibly experienced trauma, we must respond to the need, not react to the behavior. This means that we must look behind the behavior and understand what needs a child is trying to get met and how their lived experience taught them to get their needs met in this way. Effective trauma-informed screening and assessment are crucial to understanding this real cause for children's behavior and help them recover from their trauma.
All right, so I wanted to open it up to see if we had any thoughts on the video or any things that you could relate with from your agency or just stories you've heard. Feel free to unmute or ask your questions in the chat.
Good morning. This is Tandia from the Oasis Center for Women and Girls. One thing that just stood out for me from the video was the last sentence is identifying what need the individual is trying to get met. And then us as practitioners trying to, or one, realizing that the behavior, even though it might be, well, I guess that's our duty, noticing the unhealthy behavior to the need and then helping them to sit down and process that, and maybe giving them strategies to get that need, well, helping them, one, realize what the need is. Because sometimes as individuals who are victims and have went through the struggle, we don't know what it is that we're trying to get out or what it is that we're lacking. So helping them first understand that need and then giving them strategies, healthy strategies to now obtain that need moving forward. So that was one thing that stood out for me in the video.
Yes, that's so true. That kind of goes back to the analogy I use with the tissue box. Sometimes if we're not looking at the client, we're looking at what it wakes up for us. And it's normal. It's natural human instinct to, oh, why is this happening? And if we can relate, then it's our story. Like it's what we went through, and it brings up our trauma. So I always ask people, check your trauma first, because something can wake up something you've been through. It could not even be the same thing, because we all interpret trauma different. So we could all go through the same thing, but the way we react to it is different. So I think that's so true. It's just stopping and pausing and seeing, how can I be the best intake counselor to this client? How can I be the best counselor? How can I be? And it's also check-in trauma. I think trauma check-in is very real and very needed in the workplace. So if we see someone and they're off today and they're just not having it, you can tell they're not their self, they're closed off, their mannerisms, their body language, that your duties to the client. So you want to make sure that you go and have a conversation with that person. It's going to be those intense emotions that come up, those, I call them sweaty palm conversations. They're just hard to have sometimes, but if we don't have them, we risk re-traumatizing the client. And, people have to be held accountable, or coworkers or friends. And sometimes they need an outlet for whatever trauma is woke up in that moment. And, I think that is important to realize. We talk a lot about the oxygen mask analogy. I think that the whole clinical field has probably heard that a million times about put the oxygen mask on you first, but we have to make sure we're okay, because if we push through, I'm just going to, do the best I can today. You may have a client that the best you can today doesn't suit that client, because they've already been through another agency that kind of turned them away, or it was just an unfavorable experience. It just didn't meet their needs. And if we're not meeting the client's needs, then we're not doing the work. So I think that showed this system in here, several agencies, that they'll just stop and pause and, explain to Henry, hey, this happened. Somebody didn't want to have that tough conversation with an 8-year-old. And sometimes that's what we sign up for. We sign up for this trauma a little bit. So learning how to check it, learning how to navigate through that, learning how to realize, okay, this is waking up something for me. So a good tip that I tell all my interns that come on, all my team members, watch a TV show, just a TV show you've never seen before, and mute that channel and see who you don't like. There's something about that person you don't like, or something you do like. Just see why, because you can't hear any sound. So what about this person? And that kind of helps us recognize and do the self-work inside of what's going on. So that's just some takeaways from the video. Anyone else saw anything that was impactful or it just stung you a little bit? I don't think I can see the chat, LaShawn, so I'm not sure if anybody asked anything.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll move on. All right. So this is our trauma-informed care seeks. What are we seeking to do when we use this term trauma-informed? A lot of people call it TIC. What are we seeking to do? So we're seeking to realize the widespread of trauma, understand where it comes from, and most importantly, understand the process of recovery. Understand I've now been charged with this big task. This person has shared this vulnerable thing with me, this vulnerable space with me. How am I now going to help them on their journey? So you'll see in the other slide when we get there that it's a big thing of being healers and treaters. So we don't want to just be treaters. When you go and think of a hospital and you go to triage, they just treat you right then and there, but you have to have some follow-up. You want to be the person that's healers. So what we're doing is we're healing people one step at a time. So we're listening to this story. We're listening to the hard stuff. We're digging through where they have been failed before, what system have let this person down. And it could go way back. It could go back to first grade that, you know, people felt let down and they felt like a system was supposed to be there for them, that safety and that protective factor, and it wasn't. And they were resilient. That another big word we use all the time, that R word, resiliency, but it comes with a cost. It comes with you still remember. So we're always healing. We're always, you know, just on this path of trying to be better. And that is our job with any client and with each other. Like checking each other is so important. I can't say it enough because I feel a lot of times that when we're dealing with our own trauma incorrectly, or not at all, or not even aware of it, we put that on our client. Somehow that we re-traumatize them. They're telling us a story, we remember our story, we're like, oh, I can relate, let me share. That's taken away from their moment. So I feel like when we're dealing with trauma-informed altogether, it's really what it says. It's to be informed of how this phrase I could say. So let's use the example of a food bank. I have a girl, I'm at Pay, she comes to me, we don't have food. Okay. I'm going to send you to a food bank I know doesn't have food as well. I'm going to send you to a church that I know they're out. I know that I got the email that they don't have resources, but I'm going to do my job. And my job as a social worker, as an intake counselor, whatever my capacity is to refer you out. So I refer you out knowing they don't have. So you've wasted your gas, you've wasted your time. What I could do is I could say, hey, there's some resources. I think everyone's kind of low right now. Let me see what else I can do. I'm gonna work on some other things, but you keep calling and see when they come up with something. I'm not gonna let you think that this is now a resolution, that I've solved your problem. I allow you to go to this food bank and there's nothing there. So I think that there's simple things that we could do, and that's some takeaways that I want us to take from today. There's simple little tasks that we could do that could just change a person's perspective and change your journey of healing. So recognizing the signs and the symptoms of trauma in patients, families, and staff. So we talked about that a little bit, just recognizing something's not, it's something more here. It's, you know, a girl, like at Pace, a girl, she wants a hug every morning. Give her that hug. Don't be aggravated. Don't be, you know, sometimes we have that one client calls us all the time, texts us all the time, or they're always coming up. It's probably a little bit more than that basic need that you think they need. It's that companionship. It's that, okay, this person gets me. And most importantly, for people who've been through trauma, is I feel safe. I feel safe. So I have a dear friend, and she is madly scared of dogs, very scared of dogs, always scared. I could say, let's do some exposure therapy. Let's do this. That's not feeling safe right then and there. The feeling safe is to, hey, I got you. Go this way and I go that way. Is making sure that they know, hey, I understand. This is uncomfortable for you. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just letting you know I'm here. allowing that person to tell their story in the way they want to tell it, and not forcing clients to retell the story. So that is the last point of actively avoiding re-traumatization. It's ask them how they want to tell the story. Allow your client to tell during that intake process, during that first initial meeting. Don't ask all the hard questions. We're going to get the checklist met. We're going to get the questions answered, but make sure that we're not asking the same thing again. Because just like they've told you this story, they probably told DCF this story. They probably told Bond Health Clinic this story. They've told so many people the same story. So asking, how can I be the best counselor to you right now? What do you need me to know to help you? So focusing on not what's wrong, but what's strong. What is strong about this person? What have they been through? What have they, been able to just come out on the other side? So, like my friend with the dog, she's able to say, there's a dog, I need help. That's a strength. Not just clamming up, she's not just running. She's saying, I need help. And that is a way that we help our clients, when they're going through trauma, is to feel safe. How can I make you feel safe right now? This is operating by fear. This is operating by something bad that's happened to you. And I get that. Any questions about any of that? Feel free to unmute. All right.
Just a lot of positive feedback in the chat.
Okay, good. I can't see it. So
Good stuff.
Oh, good. So trauma-informed care shifts the focus with what's wrong with you to what happened to you. And trauma is one of those things. I was talking to a clinician, a friend of mine, and she said, it's not about when you're going to go through trauma. It's about what type of trauma have you been through. We've all been through things that are just icky and are just hard and are just doesn't feel comfortable, doesn't feel like sharing. So remembering, even if they're there to meet a need, back to the food bank, any type of need, just to remember that it's uncomfortable to share. It is a vulnerable, hard place to be when you feel like you're at rock bottom and you feel like this person's going to judge me. There's already a dynamic that's different. We have a race dynamic that's different. We have an age dynamic. And now I have to tell you how this person hurt me. I have to tell you how I was homeless. I have to tell you just for you to do what? So I think that's what we always have to ask, not what's wrong with the person, like what happened to you? What went wrong? What affected you in this way that we're here today? And how can I be helpful? I can't stress that enough. If we're not waking up and trying to help our clients and ask, how can I be helpful? Then you're doing more of a disservice. Any questions about that? All right, we're moving along. So this is the phrase I used earlier. We need to move from treaters to healers. So moving from, let me triage this person, let me get them that referral, we just moving too quickly. I tell people that sometimes so often in the helping profession, in the human services profession, we are so quick to take on 100 clients. Oh, it's 100 people that need to meet with me. It's 100 people that I need to get this resource out to. Can you document 100 people? Can you hold the space for 100 people? Then why? If we're going to do it halfway, that's again, reinstilling that trauma in them and just being another notch on the belt. We don't want to be a notch on the belt. We want to help close up the notches that they've been through. So that is the difference in treating and healing.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Christelle. I have a quick question. And this is a practice that we just recently did in our summer program. We have girls that come in seasonally, so we meet them where they are. And based on their need as well as their parents, what they can afford time-wise, they may be with us for about 6 months, maybe a year. So everyone is different. One of the exercises that we had, you have these girls who come in, yeah, I have trust issues. No, I'm not a friendly person, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things that I had them do was I had them identify first. So, hey, with 15 years old, you already, you already have your mind made up that you don't want new friends and what have you. So, what I advise them to do is think of a time, because at 15, we're not going to use the word trauma. So, not everyone experiences trauma within those first 15 years, but someone or something has hurt your feelings. So, I have them sit in some silence and we just write about it. We don't have to talk about it. We don't have to read our paper, but I do want you to identify a time where someone or something has hurt you. And of course, emotions are flowing. We're crying. Again, not talking about it, not reading the paper. But I tell them, it is your job to heal that inner child. So, of course, we have a conversation with the parent or the guardian, but what happens after that time is over? So, we have about maybe 6 months, and they go on to the next chapter. Of course we want to follow up with them, but then we get a new group of girls. So what do you suggest that we do within that time gap? Of course we want to check in, but for the sake of consistency and seeing that the parent is still helping the child or the child is still attached to those resources, what do you suggest that we do, just moving forward?
So I'm not sure how I'm not too familiar with your program and how it's set up. If you could offer a 6-month check-in, just somebody to call and check in. And I think you're doing great job with holding the space. Holding the space is so important to me as a clinician, because you could use no words. It could just be like what you said. And those tears I've done it with a girl for 2 hours, and she, to this day, I don't know what happened to the girl.
Mm-hmm.
But I know she sees me all the time in public. She said, I changed her life. And it was one setting. So, you having 6 months, being able to kind of develop and recognize those protective factors with the girl and say, hey, you won't have me all the time, but you have your journal. You can do this. These are resources. So letting them know you've crossed this hurdle,
Right.
but this is still here, and giving them long-term things to work on, long-term techniques, long-term coping skills, and just kind of putting those back into play, I think will be helpful, because it's better than where they started.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense a little bit?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Anyone else want to chime in? All right. So can't see because of my screen, but the principles of informed care trauma right here, I have 6, is the safety. So I've said it a million times, but safety throughout the organization, patients, staff, just feeling physically safe, feeling safe in a room, letting them know, here, the restroom is here. I'm very big on that. Someone's new to your agency, let them know where everything is. Let them know, hey, I'm going to put the sound machine on, because I don't want people to hear what you're telling me. I don't want them to hear a piece of your story that you're not willing to share with everyone else. So that's that safety part. And it's throughout the organization. All this is not just for clients. It's what we do for our teams, making sure our teams are safe. And I'll talk about that a little bit down the line, some things we can do as a team approach for trauma. But trustworthiness and transparency. Decisions are made with transparency, with the goal of building and maintaining trust. That is so important. We do have those 3 little things as therapists that we have to, and just as people in the field, that we have to tell someone else. When you're hurting yourself, someone's hurting you, or you want to hurt someone, and just being upfront about that. I know we say it a lot. It's one of those things that we've been trained to say, but it's so important for the other person to hear that. And sometimes even stopping them when they're about to tell you something, especially if it's a minor, and say, hey, just want to remind you that, I have to report, but it's still a safe place. Let's get action. Let's get the outcome you desire. Not stopping them from telling you, but just allowing them to have like a warning of what's next. So, just some common grounds of, if you tell me this is going to happen. You never want to just shock someone and they're not knowing what's next, what's the next step. So it's always good, even if you said it in the beginning of your encounter with this person, to say it right before, or to remind them. It never hurts. So peer support. individuals, just helping them through their experience, helping your colleagues again, asking people, hey, I know that you've been through this and this client has a similar story. Do you want me to help? Do you want me to intervene? And just make sure that as we're delivering this service and we're supposed to be this safe place, that we're supporting each other in the process. Anything about any of those? Anybody want to add or chime in?
Hey, it's Katrina. Love this presentation, very informative, resonates with me greatly. I'm actually a registered nurse. I do like the way that you offer the need for the professionals, the clinicians, the providers to make sure that they assess themselves, because we have all had some kind of an experience or another that has left us feeling, a certain way. And so as human beings, sometimes we will see that in others and we will not respond appropriately if we haven't dealt with it for ourselves. But I also wanted to add about sometimes people who are drawn to this profession, we want to be a hero, right? And we always want to see our work, the fruit of our work, right then and there. It doesn't always happen. We need to understand that, some plant, some water. And so maybe your interaction didn't lead them right to that aha moment you wanted it to, but someone's will. And you being this trustworthy and transparent and consistent and understanding that they heard you, but it's up to them to decide when they can act on what's being provided to them, because it's not just a choice, because trauma impacts your ability to make decisions, and it impacts the structure of your brain and your brain chemistry. So they heard you, you know what I'm saying? And they may not be able to respond right then and there like you want them to.
Right. That's so true. You said it beautifully. Thank you so much for chiming in. Yes, we have to deal with our trauma. We have to. I'm not saying you can't have any negative experiences or trauma to help clients, but we want to make sure we're helping them effectively. So just making sure we do a self-check, and I'll talk about that a few slides down. So let's keep moving. So collaboration, power differences between staff and clients and among organizational staff, and level to support shared decision making. So this is when we collaborate with our outside agencies. This is when we ask for feedback. This is when we say, hey, I had to send a client to you and they were denied services. Tell me a little bit more about that. Tell me. And it's just having, again, those tough conversations, but together we can do so much more. We all have different disciplines, different modalities that we use. We're in nonprofit, for-profit, human services. We're all in different kind of arenas, but we do so much when we're working just collaboratively than in these silos, because it doesn't, I could do so much for this client. It's like a plane, when you have you don't just go one place. Another pilot has to take you to another. You have a connecting flight. So sometimes we're all connecting flights to get that person to that one destination. But if I send them to you in New York and I'm not taking anyone, they have to come back. I have to figure out what's happening, because how am I going to get this person to where they need to go if you're cutting them off? So I think collaboration is very necessary, and especially in Tallahassee, there's so many great people doing great things. And if we collaborate, we can get to a better outcome for the client. The client can get better outcomes, and that's the end goal always. So empowerment, patient and staff strengths are recognized, built on, and validated. This includes the belief in resilience and the ability to heal from trauma. So empowering each other, saying, hey, I know that was tough for you, but you did it. Giving feedback. I think validation is so important, because the work we chose to do, because we chose this field. Some of us, the field chose us, but either way, we got in the field. And it's what now? What do we do now? We're here. We got this title. We got this business. We got this initiative, what now? So empowering each other and learning more about each other. That's kind of goes hand in hand with the collaboration. So humility and response. Biases, that's that same thing I said about the TV, and it works. I encourage everyone to try it. Go to a new show and just see there's somebody you don't like. And it doesn't mean you're prejudiced or anything. It just means that there's a bias. Could be something they wore, a color. It's just something that it wakes up for you. So just being aware of that sometime, or awareness, is very important. So making sure that we're treating everyone equally. We're not jumping to assumptions. We're not, just believing what we read on black and white. Whenever I get a referral for a girl, I don't read it. I allow them to tell me their story. Then I read it because I need the information. But I want to hear your side first. I want to hear, we have 30 minutes together. What have you chosen to share with me? If I ask you to tell me about your life, tell me who Katrina is. What you choose to share with me in those 30 minutes, those 45 minutes is crucial for healing and for me to help you on this journey, because that's all it is. We're just a helpmate. We're not fixing anything. We're just getting the same cards that the person gave us. So that is super important. All right, let's move on. So the ACE study, I won't spend a bunch of time on this, but we know that the ACEs impact us. Adverse childhood experiences, we know that they're 10, and that once you have 2 or more, your likelihood to do certain things, to get certain health diagnoses, you're at greater risk. We know the exposure to chronic health. And it's not just, you'll see on the next slide, it's not just the direct trauma that we go through. So we'll talk about big trauma and little trauma, the big T's, the little T's. So people, oh, somebody died from me when I was younger. Okay, yeah, that's traumatic. That's huge. That's grief that you had to deal with and function. A little technical difficulties. Thank you for your patience. So this is what the ACE study tree, and it tells you about the community environments, the violence, the community disruption, discrimination, poverty. But it also talks about the top of the tree, just emotional and sexual abuse, substance abuse, domestic violence. So these are all things that community environments can be a part of, but also are direct experiences. So I know that, ACE childhood studies, something that we're fairly familiar with. So we won't spend much time because I see my time is dwindling down. So experiencing childhood trauma can change your brain structure, resulting in long-term physical and behavioral health problems. Experiencing trauma causes your body to produce the adrenaline, which activates your body processes for fight, flight, or freeze responses. Goodness, I always get tongue-tied there. So anybody have anything to add about ACEs, about their work with it, about how they have experienced it with clients that they've worked with? Okay, we'll keep moving. So things to keep in mind when working with your families and your clients is that many of the families we work with are involved in multiple systems of care at the same time. So they're involved with Leon County Schools, they may involve with DCF, they may be involved with BJJ, they may be involved with the WIC office. They're involved with multiple community systems of care that are supposed to help them. So the fight, flight, and freeze responses are often developed to our systems of care, and is in our clients because of a negative experience they've had from one or more of the systems of care. So we talked about that a little bit. I sent them to a food bank that I know didn't have food, and the person at the food bank said, I told her we didn't have no food. So now that person know that I've wasted their time, they feel rejection. Now it's multiple people that know they needed food, and they still didn't get the need met. So what did I do? I re-traumatized them. Now they don't want to ask for food for anyone else. They don't want to, they'll stay there and they'll suffer, or they'll do another means they'll use that resiliency that we say sometimes to come up with another coping skill to get that need met. So we've failed in that area. So it's just making sure that asking about the other systems they're involved with, asking about their experiences with them is very important. So fight, flight, freeze responses are also experiences by the agencies as well. So I don't want to send them to Miss Barbara because I know Miss Barbara not going to have any food. She's going to give me the runaround. She's going to have me fill out the form all the way. I have to give her all these details. Well, give her the details. Miss Barbara is just doing her job. So figuring out what the conflict is with you and Miss Barbara, figuring out why is it so hard when I deal with Miss Barbara. Miss Barbara may have her own trauma that when she needed food, somebody turned her back because the form wasn't right. Somebody turned her around because this little thing detail wasn't done. So now that's the system she lives by. So, you know, sitting down with Ms. Barbara and saying, hey, we need to help this client. Is there a way that when I have 20 clients in front of me, I can give you the details of the form first and then follow up? So avoiding it is not going to make that interaction any better, and it's not going to serve the client. So I think that is very important. I find that a lot when I'm working with other agencies. We have our go-to people. But what about the other people? We're going to have to work with them at some point. And if my go-to is not available, I have to work with this person because I haven't built that rapport. Then my client is let down. My client doesn't have the shoes for back to school. My client doesn't have. So I think it's important to see how flight, fight, and freeze works, you know, when we're collaborating with other agencies. All right, short little video. So this is just when you're working with a client. I found this TikTok a while back, and I just thought it was very insightful. Just a quick little TikTok to let you know what are some ways that you can see that your client is flighty right now. They're uncomfortable in your space. So let's see if this works. Uh-oh. It's not playing for me. Let's see. Well, I'm sure it will probably play on your YouTube channel. I'll just leave them up, but they're really good TikToks just to show. And some of the body language that we can see is tensing up. We can see the shaking. The shaking is a very familiar one, but the eye contact, the tone, I have girls that start to fidget a lot with their hands and, you know, and asking, hey, what are you feeling right now? Is there anything I can do? Giving them a stress ball, giving them something and say, hey, you know, I'm fine with you fidgeting. I just want to know if there's anything I can do to help you feel a little bit more safe, a little bit more secure in this space. So I hope those play a little later. So how often have you possibly experienced any of these kind of things with community partners or with the other systems of care? So adversarial relationships between systems of care. So this is or systems that we don't connect real well. You just have that go-to person. Blame shifting. So, hey, they didn't give you the food because they didn't get the form off the fax machine. They didn't, it's on them. It's, you know, pointing the fingers. We just got to get the client served. We just got to get their needs met. So pointing the finger, there's no trophy. So, you know, even if they didn't get the fax, they didn't check the email, say, hey, do you get it now? Can I resend it to you? So having that approach versus the blame shifting, avoidance, staying close to just your contacts. So we talked about that a little bit. Lack of communication, avoiding certain people or agencies. So no, I'm not going to send you to them because they never have any food. They never have. Let me talk to the agency then and see, are you still available to meet clients' needs? Are you still available? Do you have blankets? Is there another need that I'm missing and you just don't have this one? Is there a certain time that my clients need to contact you to get? So just learning more and stopping and pausing, I think is essential. and inaction, do nothing. I'm just not gonna pick up the phone. I'm just gonna send that client a voicemail. I can't deal with it today. Why? Why can't you deal with it today? Well, can you get somebody else who can deal with it? You're going to say, hey, I'm not feeling it today. And that's hard. It's a hard thing to do. Say, hey, Christelle's not her best today. Can you kind of run the ball for me? But making sure that that client still gets their needs met, because it's a very important task that we're tasked with, to have clients that have trauma, that have really hard stories, that have been through really tough experiences, and they have not come to us to be there for them. So we have to do that. So, but also remembering that we are all human, and many of us bring our own lived experience and trauma and vicarious trauma from the work that we've chosen to do. So some things that need to happen all together for us to serve our clients in Leon County, in Florida, in Tallahassee, however you want to word it, is that all systems must be trauma informed. They have to just do your own research, take a class FSU offers them, talk to clinicians, get trainings for your staff. It's so important, and it will change your work environment. It will change the work you do. It will change how you feel about the work when you go home. Your trauma won't be as heightened. Your stress level, your toxic stress won't be as much when we're all kind of on the same wavelength of the client's needs need to be met. The client's story need to be heard. So process change at all levels. We need policy change at local and federal levels. That's a bigger story, but that is what needs to happen there. So we talked a little bit about this. I'm going super fast. I know we have only a couple of more minutes left, but making sure that we're not using attacking or aggressive language, asking someone to relieve their trauma. So that, making sure that we're focusing on the big T's, the grief, the abuse, yes. But also let's focus on when you couch surfed for a little bit. Let's focus on when, you were hungry some nights. Let's focus on those little T's, the little trauma things. So, because they could still be impacting and creating a bigger issue with receiving help. I don't think this one's gonna play either. So what can you do? What can you do for your teams? What can you do for yourself? What can you do? So identify and seek understanding for your own unresolved trauma. There's so many ways out there now. There's so many virtual things. A lot of employers, the virtual visits are free now. Create a trauma-informed workplace, ongoing assessments, training, even twice a year. Just get together and say, hey, what are we doing with trauma? A simple thing is when you hire someone, I just started this practice, ask them, how do you define trauma? It is amazing to me. People with credentials, masters in social work, masters in mental health counseling, could not define it for me. How have you seen trauma in Tallahassee? Have you seen trauma in your community? Couldn't identify it. So making sure just a simple change like that. When you hire somebody, just ask them. Ask them. And remember that being trauma informed also comes with being culturally competent. Comes with another set of layers, right? Gender responsive. It comes with understanding that whole being and their whole community. So temperature check of your team. I think this is very important. Even if you're not an admin or a manager, going around, checking on hey, how you doing today? 5 minutes, depending on how big your organization is, 10 minutes, just a quick check, checking on the clients, check in and just see how the day is gonna go. You can gauge a lot from a temperature check. And then doing your own temperature check. At 1 o'clock every day, I have an alarm that says, what does Christelle need? And I sit with myself and I say, what could be beneficial for me right now? Have I drank water? Have I used the restroom? Simple thing. No, because I'm plugging away. I'm helping clients. I'm saving the world. I need to put gas in me first. I need to make sure the things that I've neglected from 6 a.m. to 1, what can I do for me right now? And I think that will help a lot as well. Just recognizing that, hey, I didn't eat today. Let me take 10 minutes. Let me go outside. So encouraging work from home days is another one. EAP benefits. Your company pays for them. Let them use it. You know, it doesn't hurt to check in, and owning it. Own it when you have a rough day. Own it when you said too much. Own it when you did too much. I live by being too extra. So, you know, living when, hey, I know I did a little too much in that meeting, you know, and owning it. I think people can appreciate that. And that's how people build connection with you all. So this is just another, the 4 R's of trauma: realizing it, recognizing, respond, and resiliency. So I will wrap up there. I had a lot more, but I will save it for another time. Probably there'll be a part 2. I'm welcome to come out and talk to anyone more in depth about trauma. This is just an overview, but if you're definitely trying to make your workplace more trauma informed, definitely reach out to me for just even tips, and I could guide you in the right direction. So any questions?
So we want to definitely thank Crystal for those tools and tips. I took a couple notes over here myself. I know a lot of agencies are working directly with clients. So again, if you want a copy of the presentation, the PowerPoint slides, or the Zoom, just reach out to Jay and he'll get that to you. I wanted to let you all know that Zoom had a national outage in the middle of the presentation. So Justin was in the back end, trying to make sure we all stayed on while trying to get some other people connected. And so I guess it's a lot of people on Zoom on this Tuesday all across the country, but lots of great feedback in the Zoom. Thank you all for your tips and just conversation. Any last minute questions before we close out? And Crystal, if you'll put your email in the chat, please. So it's crystal.avilus@pacecenter.org. If you're wanting to connect with her, there it is on the screen. She actually has her crystal clear counseling email as well as her phone number. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you as well, see Luke and others. Well, we're going to go ahead and close out. Again, thank you all so much for your time. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on social media. And be sure to holler if you need anything. You all be well, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Take care.